call it mesquite.
So now we're going to tell this things he eats.
That just makes me so mad. It brings it up
Like
again.
he can't have a lot of.
See, and I'm mad they took those pickleball courts down. I complained to Barbara Palmieri. It's 10 o'clock.
It's crazy. He can't have bacon. He can't have. It's not because it affects the blood.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. I want to call to order the October 25th, 2023 board meeting for HOA 2. And we're going to saw something, it sounds like. Okay, I'm Dan Leniger. I'm the president of HOA 2. I'll go down the row here and have introductions for the people on the stage.
Mark Eckert, I'm the vice president of the HOA.
Sean Kreiderman, director.
Campbell Cheney, treasurer.
Matt Cambick, assistant treasurer.
Denise Lexell, director.
Chuck Hill, secretary.
Walter Yazzie, general manager.
Charlie Shawless, recording secretary.
Thank you. Just as a reminder, if you'd like to shut off your cell phones, be a help if you get a call. I don't know if you will, but I shut mine off. So let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much. I want to do something. I haven't done this in the past, and it's probably be on me as something we ought to try in the future. I'll go through the agenda. We don't have it, I don't think, in printed form for you. It's online, certainly, but I'll go quickly through the agenda. We have a full meeting today with lots of stuff, lots of really good stuff I think everyone will enjoy. The first thing we'll do is approve minutes from last meeting. Walter's going to give us an update. Ray is here, but just back from vacation. Where's Ray? Oh, okay, he's kind of back. But Walter's going to actually give an update on projects. Dale, our patrol captain, is here, Dale Tate. He's going to give us a safety update. Mountain View Golf Course, Matt Cambick is going to talk to us about the golf course, where we are on the Mountain View construction project. Replacement Reserve Fund update. Campbell's going to talk to us about our reserve fund and where we stand with that now and going forward. He'll also give us a September financial update. Committee Policy Task Force, I will walk us through this. It's a quick thing, but we're going to create a task force for committee policy. Employee use of Desert View Fitness, along with a motion, will be Walter, talking about the ability of our employees to use the fitness center. Rules and Regs Committee will be brought up by our friend Ray Adams, who's the chair of the Rules and Regs Committee. This is all about dogs. So if you're here to think about dogs, you're in the right place. And the last will be a common area committee charter and a motion by Matt Cambick. So that's the last presentation that we will have. I'll remind you that we have a budget town hall meeting on November 1, just around the corner. So please try to attend if you can. It will be recorded and be online, but if you can be here, that'd be great. And then the next board meeting is November 15th, a little earlier than normal, but earlier because of the Thanksgiving holiday. So with that, that was kind of exciting to go through that, huh? I'm going to turn it over to Walter for his update for both projects and general manager. Oh, sorry, did I skip that? Sorry. All right, I skipped something already. I'll take a motion to approve the minutes of the September 27th, 2023 board meeting. Do I have a motion? Second? Second. All right. Any comment? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, it carried. We're lucky. All right, back to Walter. Walter, I'll give you the floor.
Thank you, Dan. And again, welcome everybody to this board meeting, and glad you made some time to come out. We know by looking at the operations in the food and beverage that a lot of the folks are coming back from their summer locations, but today it doesn't look like they all made it down here, so they're probably unpacking their houses. But okay, let me start. I got a bunch of stuff to go over today, just starting with accounting, stuff that the staff has been doing. You've probably seen, or you may know that the 2024 preliminary budget has been posted to the website. So if you're interested in what the budget looks like for next year, the preliminary is out. It's posted on the website. We have also finished the financial statements for September, and that went a lot better with our new North Star software. So those are completed, and I believe they're posted. If not posted, they'll be posted pretty soon. Charlie here next to me, she has been working hard to convert a lot of the forms into an electronic fillable form. So most of those are now available on the website, including a guest card request. So as the holidays come and you want to request a card for your guest, you can do that online now. The other thing that's going on is, of course, the board elections. So you have until November 8th at midnight to vote for who you want on the board, or at least the positions that are open. All right, Michael Park, can you stand up and maybe just come down here to the front here? So Michael Park is our new Common Area Director, and we're glad to have him on board. He's got a lot of work to do on his shoulders, but you can tell he's a big guy, so he can handle it. So, so we're not worried about that. So I just wanted to welcome Michael in front of all of you, just to let you see who Michael is. He's doing great things. He's been here 2 weeks, and already I see some progress in areas that I was concerned with. So he's got the time to start planning and making a plan here. Level 5, he's started level 5 along Winding Trail, which is going to come up through 48, work north up through 47, Unit 47. So they're working on that currently. He also has planned to put all the winter flowers out. I guess I'm going to call them winter flowers. At a lot of the monuments we have, there's flower beds in front of them, and so the summer ones have died, and he's going to be replacing those. I think he's doing that today, most of his crew. So, he's also going to start focusing on looking at the different clubhouses and looking at the vegetation around that, and then they're going to be starting here at Desert View to trim up and kind of make it a little bit more vibrant around the clubhouses. So, those are just some things right off the top that he's looking at. So, welcome, Michael. I'm going to let you go because I know you have a lot to do and a lot to coordinate, so thanks for coming in. The fitness center has completed a massage room, so if you like massages, they have a nice room again. I think I've mentioned that before, and you'll see it on some slides here pretty soon. And of course, snowbirds are back, so classes and fitness classes are filling up quickly. In the food and beverage arena, of course, there's live music back at the Preserve on Wednesday nights. And another thing that we're pushing is we are pushing feedback on food and beverage. So we started with putting a QR code at the bottom of a receipt, but then we also realized that not everybody takes their receipt. So we've added a little card on the tables that has a QR code that takes you to the specials, and it also takes you to a feedback form. So we ask that you if you use the facilities, go ahead and give us some feedback. So just interested in what you have to say. In our human resources, a lot of times we don't talk about human resources, because that's kind of behind the scenes, but they are working with Roger on the employee appreciation. And so every year there's donations that we have a dinner for the staff in December, and some of the gifts are the employee donations for employee appreciation. You'll see some information boards out in all the lobbies that tell you how to donate if you would like. In lifestyle, you got the Fall Festival on November 9th, and that's going to be from 4 to 7 p.m. at the Mountain View lawn. So they're going to be out on the lawn. The band will be outside, and lots of great food stations will also be out there. So we will have outside seating, and the cost is going to be $37 per person. So that's the Fall Festival, November 9th. Comcast is here today and tomorrow. So if you have questions about Comcast, want service, or just have questions about your service, they'll be in the ballroom, Mountain View Clubhouse ballroom today and tomorrow if you want to stop by and talk to them. This weekend, arts and crafts sales this Saturday. Again, in the ballroom from 9 to 3. So if you're interested in buying some arts and crafts, stop by and see what they have to offer. All right, on to golf. Still, the opening of the front nine is to be determined. The overseeding is going well, and the preserve will be opening on Monday, the 30th. And it will be cart path only for about 3 weeks once they open up at the preserve Monday. Okay, so Matt has a lot of information here, so I'm going to go through this from Golf Ops. Annual pass sales for 2024 have begun. New annuals receive November and December of 23 with purchase. So if you purchase your 24 annual and you're a new annual, then you actually get November and December thrown in there for you. Renewing full annuals receives a $200 incentive to renew, and a PM annuals receive a $150 incentive to renew. So Sip and Swing returns on November 10th, and you can sign up on 4Ts if you're interested in that event. And the back nine that has been opened at Mountain View has been receiving a lot of positive comments. Carts may use the 90-degree rule as of this past Saturday, October 21st. All right, so on to IT. IT, again, is working on bringing the North Star program online, the club management software, along with marketing. That has gone pretty well. The software is working well, and they released the app just recently. We have over 1,000 downloads of the app, so thank you for downloading the app and getting on the app. That I use it a little bit myself, and I think it's a great tool. Other things you might be aware of is there's the digital loyalty program at the food and beverage outlets. So what this is, the North Star system automatically tracks when you use your club card at the food and beverage outlets. And so for every $100 you spend at the food and beverage outlets, you will get $5 credit that can be used your next time in. And that's automatically tracked by North Star. On the desktop and on the app, you can see where you're accumulating those points. DV pack down here for the 23-24 shows. Those are loaded on the website, and they're offering a bundle option for them also if you want to buy several shows at once. And let's go on down to patrol. If you don't know, patrol, all of the patrolmen have the CPR AED training. So just recently they redid their training. 5 of them were due, so they got that completed. If you look on the Monday message, Dale has put out the dates for holiday parking. So when you have visitors and stuff, they get to park on the streets, and Dale has that posted on the Monday message on what dates you can park on the streets. And finally, Dale is also doing a great job. Our patrol captain, Dale, is doing a great job at the senior safety seminars, and his next senior safety seminar is November 2nd here in the theater at 2 p.m. So those are great things, free, and a lot of great information that they coordinate there. So that's the completion of my update, and I can move into project update at this point. All right, just a change of scenery. So project update. Of course, kind of getting at the end of the year, so many of our projects are completed or being completed. So let's go to the first slide. We have a project to cover the golf cart parking up at the preserve. Of course, we did that down here at the Mountain View already. So this is the second part of that project. As they put in those vertical beams, they happened to find one of the main water lines that supply the preserve golf course. So we had a little delay as we fixed the water line, and then we had to figure out a way to spread the weight of that beam so it didn't bother the water line. So that delayed us a little bit. Still for the top of this structure is delayed, so we're delayed there. So we'll be working with Matt on Monday on where he needs to park the golf carts until we can get that completed. So that's underway. Next, earlier, just as we started the meeting, you heard some kind of noise up on the roof. They're still working on the roof here. Talked to the contractor yesterday, and he said that they should be complete next week with the roof. And the great thing about this roof is there's actually an inspector that comes out and inspects how it was installed and then certifies and guarantees the roof. So next week should be complete, and then the following week the inspector should come out and give us the thumbs up for the roof. All right, next slide. Okay, we had Mike down here working common areas. You can see that red line. Basically, that's what I talked about, is he's moving from north to south on that red line, doing the level 5 cleaning there. And you can see to the right a picture I took as they started that. It's hard to see, but they are flagging. There's some flags there, and doing as we had determined, or the process we determined during the Common Area Task Force meetings. So we are following those procedures. Next slide. Again, we're asking that you stay off the lawns until those signs are removed. Again, we overseeded around the common area, and it's coming in good. It looks good. So just, if you see the signs, please don't walk on the grass. And finally, a picture of the massage room, which is just over here in the fitness center. So if you want a massage, Monday 11 to 4 p.m., Tuesday 9 to 12, and Friday 9 to 1 is the schedule. And that completes the short project update I have. So thank you, and back over to you, Dan.
Thanks, Walter. Can I assume board members get free massages? Is that an assumption I should make?
I think you get a special price.
Special price, that's what I want, a special
That's
price.
double, yeah.
Okay, next up is our patrol captain, Dale Tate, to give us a safety update. Dale, be careful coming up those stairs, don't trip.
Thank you, Dan. What I want to talk about this morning is mostly what I think most of our residents and our board and our management considers probably the biggest safety issue in Saddlebrook, which is traffic, speeding, stop signs, et cetera. And actually, that's the topic of the next senior safety seminar next Thursday, a week from tomorrow, in this room at 2 o'clock, where we'll have some law enforcement officials and myself talking about what state and local and community agencies are doing to help slow people down and obey traffic rules. So you may know, you may have seen, probably everybody has seen the flashing electronic signs that say what speed you're going, and those devices also collect data. They've been here for a number of years. The old ones are extremely difficult to get that data off. So Joey, next slide. We've seen that in our recent membership survey that just was completed a few weeks ago, that 14% of our residents are dissatisfied with the enforcement of traffic laws. That's a fairly low number compared to some of the other things in that survey, but it's not low enough. Luckily, overall security of the community, which I take personal responsibility for, not really, but that had a pretty high rating, so we're definitely happy about the overall safety of the community, security of the community, but traffic is still a huge issue. Next slide. We had these 5 radar speed signs around the property. There's 2 on Mountain View Boulevard, 2 here on Clubhouse Drive going north, and one's a mobile sign that we can move around. Again, those are good, and they help people remember how fast they should be going or how slow they should be going, but it's not enough. And those signs have been problematic in that, number one, they're battery powered and batteries have to be changed periodically, and getting the information that they collect is cumbersome because it's only by Bluetooth and you have to be within about 8 feet of the sign, and some of the signs actually stopped working providing that data. So next slide. A couple of years ago, actually, Walter at a convention won a raffle for a device called a TrafficLogix speed tracker, and it's literally a black box like you see on the screen that we decided on 14 different locations around Saddlebrook 2. And what it does is it doesn't have the sign on it, but it collects volume of number of vehicles, how fast they're going, can determine if they are exceeding the posted speed limit or tolerated speed limit. And I say tolerated because there is a, well, we don't want to ticket people for going 26 miles an hour in a 25 mile an hour. That would be ridiculous. So there is a margin. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but we have a tolerated limit that we wouldn't write a ticket for. So it helps collect that data as well as exceeding just the 25 mile an hour speed limit. And I hope everybody knows 25 is the limit for every street in Saddlebrook, with only the exception of Mountain View Boulevard and then Saddlebrook Boulevard up at the entrance to the community. So we moved it around these 14 locations over the course of a year, and took in 2-week increments, took speed information and helped us determine what are the worst areas, the worst days, and the worst times of day for speeding. So it was a very data-intensive analytical approach to where we should spend the majority of our time. This shows a typical report, which has a lot of data on it. I don't expect you to be able to read that, but this was a daily report. We could also break it down into 15-minute increments for each day. So that makes like 100 and something pages of information for a month. But it shows the total vehicle count at that location, the number of speed violators, the percentage of speed violators, the average speed, the maximum speed, and then the 50 percentile and 80 percentile speed. So all that is information that we can crunch down and say, we need to spend more time at a particular location because that's where and when speeding happens. Next slide, please. So flash forward to last year in 2022 when we added the SpeedLogix signs that collect that same information, but they have the flashing number on them. We got 2 of those. We placed them both up on Catalina Hills, a few hundred yards apart. And they collect the same information, but instead of having to be at that sign within 8 feet or so, we can download it from the internet, from the cloud. And those went into use in November of last year, just a year ago. Analysis from the three collectors, these two speed signs and the black box, have enabled us to quantify the effectiveness of the signs in actually slowing down traffic. And it's actually been a pretty remarkable decrease. Patrol uses this data as a key performance indicator, or KPI, for how well we're attacking this problem of driving safety in Saddlebrook. Next slide, please. So here's this one location within Saddlebrook up on Catalina Hills. It shows that we have very large volumes of traffic, particularly right now with all the construction going on up in the preserve. As many as 21,000 vehicles in a month, and as low as about 12,000. But as this graph shows, and you can probably barely see it because it's such a low number, the percentage of speeders in these locations averages around 3%. So that's the good news, is that a very small percentage of the total volume of vehicles actually go beyond our tolerated speed limit. But even though it's 3% on average, the total number of speeders each month range from 270 to over 620 in a month. So that's still a big number, and it's not something that we want to disregard. If we've got that many hundreds of people exceeding the speed limit on a curvy, hilly street like Catalina Hills, then we're not in the clear. We still have work to do. The next slide shows what the efficacy of having these speed signs. Before we put them in place, that number up on Catalina Hills was about 7% of the vehicles exceeding the tolerated limit. As soon as we put it into service in November of 2022, you see that number went down to 2 and 3% on average each month. So that tells us that, just right off the bat, immediately reminding people of what the speed limit is and that they're going too fast has a positive effect of slowing people down. And it's stayed that kind of a number between 2 and 4% every month since. The big picture, over the last year and a half, we've collected almost 112,000 vehicles have passed by on our roads. That's all of the locations of the black box combined, so it's actually way more than that, but this is what we were able to measure, 112,000 vehicles. Of those, about 5,700, which is 5%, were exceeding the tolerated speed limit. Again, that's pretty good news. The average speed has been 22 miles per hour in the locations that we have measured, which may surprise a lot of people. And it may be a tiny bit skewed due to it measuring golf carts, utility vehicles, that kind of a thing, which we can't filter out. But it's still the large majority of the vehicles that pass by these signs are these collection points are automobiles. And once again, even though a small percentage of speeding is still a significant number. The traffic logic speed signs have been a great addition, and pending the approval of next year's budget, the 2024 budget, I anticipate getting 2 more of them. Exact locations to be determined, but we know that Desert Bluff is one of our worst areas. We know that Peregrine is one of our worst areas. Southbound Clubhouse Drive is one of our worst areas. So we expect to see 2 new devices in those areas that we'll continue to monitor. And just note that these have been an effective tool, and the information that they provide help patrol know where the hot spots are, so we can respond to that. Keep in mind, we still only have 1 person on a shift, generally speaking, covering all 55 miles of roads, so we can't be everywhere at once. But I do appreciate the feedback that we get saying, you might want to pay more attention to my street because we see speeding all the time. But at least the data that we have to back it all up indicates that it's a pretty small percentage, but a reasonably high number. Any questions from the board? on all of this?
Question from the board?
Do we take questions from the audience at this point?
I think so, probably after we've adjourned the meeting.
Okay,
You'll still be around?
I will.
Okay, cool.
All right.
I think
Thank
we'll
you.
do it that way, and that way we'll keep kind of on track. Thank you very much, Dale. Information like that is important. It's everybody who lives on a road, this impacts them. So the work that our patrol is doing to try and control speed is very, very important. We all walk on the roads, ride our bikes on the roads, so having safety in road issues is very important. So thank you, Dale, for that, for the work that you're doing. Next on the agenda is a bit of an update from Matt Campick on Mountain View.
Next slide, Joey. Thank you, sir. I show this every month because I think it's important that you know that the interface between all of these players is essential to us getting to the finish line on this project at Mountain View. Steve Robeson is the owner of Desert Reflections, the construction firm. Mike Gogol is our course architect and has the project lead for us. Marvin Mills is our irrigation consultant. Paul Halleck is our director of agronomy here, the Troon employee that's actively engaged in the day-to-day connections, if you will, with the project. And then I put the board up there as Dan, Mark, and myself. Campbell's the bag man. All things financial obviously run through Campbell. But Dan, Mark, and I typically do the interface with Robeson and Gogol when the issues rise up. Next slide, please. So our last coordination meeting was on the 18th of October. Steve Robeson and Bruce Church are both from Desert Reflections. Mike Gogol was there as our architect. Matt Hudson was representing Troon. And Mark Eckert and I were representing the board. And we basically were looking for two outcomes. This was about 9 days after we opened up on the front nine. It was the first time we could get the leadership of Desert Reflections and our course architect on the ground here at the same time. And we wanted to answer two questions. Where are we at and how are we getting to the finish line? Next slide. So I've shown this chart to you many times. Bottom line is we're about 40% through the the front nine operation. Last Friday was a big day for us. We put sod on the T-decks of 1, 2, 3, and 4. We put sod in the sand cap areas on 1, 2, and 3. Fairway irrigation is complete on 1, 2, 4, and 9. And the tie-in for the main line is actually ongoing into the pump station on number 8 as we speak. So we're getting very close to wrapping up the mainline construction effort. Probably by the end of next week, all that work will be completed. So where are we? Next slide. That's more technical details than you probably want. But here's what we walked away from that meeting, thinking that we know these things. We expect the construction effort to be completed on or about 1 December. Paul reminds me that there will be work to be completed once construction is completed. And we're working into an environment of unknowns. When's our first frost coming? What's going to happen the last day we put sod down? How long is it going to take for us to knit? Will it knit? Is it going to allow play? All of these things are questions I do not have answers for. If Chuck Kelsey's sitting out there, I don't have answers for them. And so we got to stay flexible as we're going through this. But the biggest thing that happened was we changed the focus of the construction company. Mark and I agreed at this meeting after we took in all the data that was presented to us. The biggest concern that our director of agronomy has is with getting the sod on the T-decks put in. To do that, you have to get the irrigation installed. And if you understand the way they work, they try to get a hole done and then go to the next hole and then get to the next hole. The problem with that is we'd be a long time getting to the last T-deck. And so Paul brought that concern to our attention. We took it to the contractor and our architect, and they agreed that we probably needed to shift our focus off of trying to get the first 4 holes done. You'll notice that we do not have irrigation in on 3 fairway. There's been no irrigation work there because the irrigation team has now moved through. 5 tees are irrigated and 6 tees are irrigated, and that allows the finish crews to come in and get our T-decks lasered so we can sod them. So as I'm sitting here right now, the irrigation team is on number 7. So we've got to complete the irrigation loops on 7, 8, and 9, and then sod all those. And the effort is, the expectation is we'll get all that construction work completed by the end of next week, so we can get the sod down. Now, when is the good Lord going to give us frost delay, or our first frost here? If you're with me, pray that He keeps it warm as far into November as we can, so we can get as much of this grass down as we can. When I talk to you about the stakeholders, I just want to share a couple vignettes about the collaboration and teamwork that has developed and evolved over time, as well as the voice of our community and how it impacts on this project. There's a fellow sitting over here by the name of Don Sanders. He's a member of the golf committee. And he calls me up one day and says, Matt, I snuck out and I took a look at number 4, and I don't think that bunker's going to quite do it for us. And I was laughing at him. You snuck out. But what was so funny was that same day I had been sitting on that same hole with Paul Halleck, and we had been looking at it, and I had the same observation Don had. What Don didn't know is I'd already called the architect, who had already briefed me about his plan not to put a bunker in on another hole that he had planned on putting it in. So I called him up. I said, Mike, remember that bunker you didn't want to put in over there? You need to put it in on 4. You make the golf committee very happy. I can report to you, Don, the bunker is in the ground and it's ready for play. All right? It was a great catch, but that was the flexibility we were able to work as this project has evolved. Yesterday, Mark and I were out on the course doing our battlefield circulation control, and I had been out there earlier in the day, and our director of agronomy had raised a concern about a T-deck over on number 9, the black T-deck. I called the architect and sent him over there, and by the time Mark and I get in there, they'd already moved the T-deck to make our director of agronomy happy and a resident who had been concerned about its location. So the relationships that we have built with the construction team, with our architect, are paying dividends in ways that I never imagined before this project started. That's all I've got, Dan.
Thanks, Matt. Can I assume that we're still on budget with regard to this project?
Yeah, there's no changes from the budget perspective. We're on budget.
Okay, no change orders
No
that
changes.
have been unexpected in this process. So we're still on budget. Great, thank you for that update. I know everybody would like it sooner rather than later, but certainly getting it right is the most important part. Next on the agenda, Campbell, we have a replacement reserve fund update from you. Looking forward to that.
Okay, thanks, Dan. I'm pushing this forward because I think it's incredibly important to talk about a replacement reserve fund. I talked a little bit about it in the last board meeting. I'm going to keep pushing it more and more forward because I think it is one of the things, one of the critical items we need to pay attention to. But why is it important? For 2023 budget, about 28% of all of your dues went into this fund. It was the biggest contributor of or user of your funds was this. Kind of putting that into perspective, 28% into the reserves. If you look at food and beverage and golf combined, it was only 10% usage of your dues. The subsidy was 10%. So it's a very big number that goes into this fund. So let's talk a little bit about what is this fund and what does it do. The Replacement Reserve Fund basically takes money and it is used to remodel, replace, renovate, and repave all of our infrastructure assets, including buildings, roads, the common area, portions of the common area, golf courses, furnishings, equipment, just about everything. As I said, the primary source of the fund is our dues. 28% of your dues in 2023 went into this fund, but also the two other levers we can use to put money in the fund. One is assessments, which would be above dues. We haven't really used that up until now, but that is a lever we have. And the other one is the community improvement fee allocation. Now, what is a community improvement fee? Basically, if existing home is sold, the new homeowner pays 1 year's dues into the community improvement as a community improvement fee. It's split 50-50 this year into the CIF Community Improvement Fund and the Reserve Fund. So those are the three levers we have. So, next slide, Joey, thanks. So how much money do we have? As of October 19th, we had about $4.1 million in this fund. Just keep that in mind when we go through the next few slides about how much money we're going to need going forward. Next slide, Joey. Okay, from 2018 to 2023, for those 6 years, we spent about $12.6 million. You can see in 2018, we only spent $1.2 million, a very small number, compared to what we were budgeted in 2023, which was about $4 million. Now, of that $4 million, about $1.4 million of it was in debt service on our loan, which we really needed to take out because we were behind, which is why we took out a loan for the golf course, the Mountain View Golf Course renovation. I don't want to be behind going forward. So looking at the next slide, Joey. So looking at 2024 to 2028, in these 5 years, our reserve study consultants say we're going to have to spend $20 million to keep our community in the condition that we want it to be in. $8 million of it is in golf. And we all know golf is going to be the biggest user of these funds, but $8 million is golf, and of that, $5.7 million is debt service payments. So we don't want to have debt going into the outer years of 2028, 9 to 2033, which we'll talk about in a minute. Other uses of it are roads, $5.5 million. Our roads are old; some of them are failing. Clubhouse Drive, anybody, when you drove down here, you knew it's pretty bumpy. That needs to be taken care of. That's part of this $5.5 million. The Mountain View Complex, the clubhouse, needs a renovation. That's also in this number, and you can go on down the list. Joey, next slide. So here's 2029 to 33, $22 million, almost $23 million. You put them together, and we need $43 million over the next 10 years. Simple math tells you that's $4 million a year. We haven't been providing for $4 million a year. And a lot of these numbers are going to be front-loaded, which means they're coming sooner rather than in the back end. So we're really behind in funding our reserve and keeping in mind our reserve expenditures. And these numbers, again, we're looking in the future. These numbers are probably going to end up being very low because when these numbers were generated a year, 2 years ago, inflation being what it is, these numbers, I think, are going to be woefully inadequate and low. So we got to really keep our eye on how much we're going to have to provide going forward to keep, again, the community in the condition we want it to be in. Now, Joy, the next slide. Now, this is a slide. I want you to take a second and look at it, kind of absorb it, because there's a lot here. What this shows is how much our dues have been since we transitioned in 2018. Now, the CSF is our overall dues. That's the fancy name for community service fee, but it's our overall dues. And it's split in two different areas. It's split in our operations, which is running the HOA and subsidizing our amenities, things like that. And then there's the RRF, which is the Replacement Reserve Fund. That is what I just talked about with those big numbers, the $43 million. So if you look at 2018, we had $2,000 is now $3,320, $33. The operations, about $1,800. It's now $2,400. But if you look under the green circle, that shows what the growth was for those 6 years. It was about 5.3%, which was actually lower than inflation. So we're growing our dues to operate the community at lower than the inflation rate over that same time period. Looking at the far right column, you can see where that growth rate was 26%. So we're putting a lot more money into the reserve, and you're seeing a crowding out effect of some sorts. So again, that's what's really driving the dues increases, is money being provided for the reserve. The next slide, Joey. And this kind of shows more or less the same type of thing, but at kind of an easier on the eyes line graph, going from $224 we were charged in 2018 to $900 in 2023, and going higher with the 2024 budget. So just an easier way to look at that. Okay, Joey, next slide. So basically, conclusion on this update, and would be more coming later, is we need to make additional investments in our replacement reserve fund to keep our community well maintained and its original intended condition. I can't stress strongly enough that this is something that is very much a front burner issue financially for this community. Now, I know, Dan, if you want me to continue on with the financial update, or is that fine?
Does the board have any questions for Campbell on the reserve fund? Campbell, just to be clear, and I think you were very clear, but I'll be clear in my own mind. These reserve fund monies that you're talking about aren't building anything new.
No.
They're maintaining what we have. So it's not like we're getting a new Mac building, or we're building a bunch of new pickleball courts, or we're expanding dramatically the preserve facility. We're maintaining what we have. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's not building anything new. It's just maintaining, renovating, remodeling what we already have.
Okay. So it's like taking my car and getting the oil changed. It's something you got to do to maintain it and keep it running. And
I would say it's more like replacing your roof. The costs are larger.
Fine, it's a bigger deal. I get it. Okay, cool. Thank you very much. No board questions. If you'd like to tell us about September, that'd be great.
All right, Joey, next slide. Okay, here's our cash and investment position. Again, we did it October 19th. The other two are from bank statements and brokerage statements, not from audited statements or our financials. They're the actual dollars that our bank and our brokerage firm said we were at these particular points in time. And I want to point to, we look at September, the reserve fund, which I just talked about. You look at the September 30th number, we had $5.2 million. And I just said, and I'll mention again, October 19th, it was $4.1 million, about $1.1 million less. So what happened? Well, if you drive down Mountain View Boulevard and the repavement of that's basically was $930 million of it. And the other part was our monthly debt service is $120,000, $119,000 we pay on the debt. Putting those two together took us down $1 million, over $1 million just from the end of September, just to kind of put things in context of the significance of the reserve fund and how much money is needed to keep things well maintained. That's the point of that slide. Now getting into our monthly statements. You can see the HOA is making a net income. I have the first green bar at the highest level. The top here is $122,000 for the HOA. That was better than budget, but it was a little bit less than a year ago. So I put the red bar there. So it wasn't quite as good. And the costs, you can see the costs escalating to run the HOA. Golf, you can see same story. We've had several prior months. We're still waiting for a lot of equipment that was in the budget, hasn't arrived yet, so we haven't had to expend it. So that's why you can see the costs of $318,000 was a lot lower than the budgeted cost of $385,000 because of the equipment, and it's also some of the staffing. Getting in what we talk about a lot is food and beverage. Food and beverage lost $90,000, almost $91,000. We're only projecting a $23,000 loss or subsidy versus $57,000 a year ago. So you can see, we'll get a little bit more into it in detail in a couple more slides. Overall, For the month, we did better than expected. We still lost money, though. Okay, next slide, Joey. Year-to-date, kind of the same format. We're doing better on the HOA by several $100,000. But I do want to bring your attention to the food and beverage, $479,000 loss year-to-date through September. The projection put out by our finance director, our finance department, shows a loss of $500,000 versus $370,000 in 2022. If you look from transition to now, we average between $350,000, $450,000 in subsidies for food and beverage. I think we can do a lot better. I think we need to do a lot better. We are certainly working on that. We'll get to that in some of the things we've been doing in a couple of slides. Okay, next slide, Joy. Here's the food and beverage breakdown. Mountain View lost $70,000 for the month. Year to date, it's losing $350,000. What was interesting, and you see the red arrowed lines here, last year, Mountain View lost $322,000. Not great, but certainly not falling off a cliff like the bottom line numbers seem to suggest. The Preserve, I'll go to year to date where the two circles are. The Preserve, you look at costs, $1 million year to date in expenses versus $885,000, way above budget. That's something that we got to look at, what's going on with costs at the Preserve. And then wages and benefit, over half of our total expenses for the HOA is in wages and benefits. If you look at the total, for the month we expended $609,000 in payroll. For the year to date, $5.6 million total payroll, kind of in line with budget. Golf, you see, is helping us because our staffing levels are down because of the Mountain View renovation, but it's hurting us with F&B. We got to look at that. I mean, F&B was 10% over September 2022 and also 10% over year to date, from where our wage growth has not been like that year to date nationally. And then cost of goods sold, which is what people like to look at. I did put two green squares with an arrow in between. If you look at cost of goods sold at the Preserve, which has been kind of the sore spot, with Terry Dempsey's help, he's been digging into what's going on with cost of goods sold. We have brought it down from 50% in August to 44%. Hopefully it will continue to go down. But we are working on it, is the point of the comment. And then also getting back to payroll. You can see payroll for both Mountain View and Preserve, 93% of revenue goes to payroll. In Mountain View for the month, 66% of revenue went to payroll to Preserve. I'm not a restaurant expert, but I know people tell me that's very, very high. So we got to work on those kinds of issues. And then the next slide is kind of what Matt talked about earlier about being on budget. This shows our contracted amount. The left-hand column with numbers shows our contracted amount is about $5.67 million for the Mountain View renovation. Invoice through October 16th is about $4.6 million. We're about $1 million left to complete the project. So far, we're right on target. All the change orders have been completed, and then we still have a couple more outstanding, bills to pay with our design work. And then last is kind of what's left for reserve spending and capital improvement fund expenditures. If everything gets completed, we should spend about $600,000 left in the reserve fund, which will put us under $4 million, about $3.5 million at the end of the year. And for the CIF, we're still working, paying off the infrastructure for the new golf cart structure at the Preserve. That's about what's left. So just throw that out there so you can look at it. Anyway, Dan, that is it for the September update.
Thanks, Campbell. Board, do you have any questions for Campbell on September? All right. Okay, we'll move on. If there are questions from the audience, we'll take those at the end of the meeting. I am on next. So, Joey, if you want to, there we go. Something always good happens when you start to think about where you are in governance for the HOA. We're young. We're in our 6th year of being on our own, and each thing that we deal with has had to have some kind of a policy underwriting it, whether it is how we collect money, whether it is an IT strategy, or on and on. We have a lot of policies that we have written, or people before us in board positions and committees have written, that are very important to our governance. And we're growing. When we're starting to mature, the strategic planning process is a big step in helping us in this maturing cycle. One of the things that we do not have, though, and I wanted to call a task force to address, is some commonality in how our committees function consistently one to another. It isn't intended to be a micromanagement of those committees. They're advisory groups to the board, but it's a policy. I believe we need a policy to at least give consistencies to our committees and how they act and what they do and how they form their different issues that they deal with. So, next slide. So the policy definition I'm asking this task force to address. Task force will recommend to the board a committee policy that defines basic committee functions across all of our committees. Identify unique differences, if any, and make suggestions regarding committee charter guidelines to be incorporated into each committee charter. Each committee relies on their charter to give them direction and to give their members direction and to give the board an understanding of what they're doing as an advisory group. Next slide. Key points to consider, and this is not an all-inclusive list. This is just a beginning list. Authority of the committees, consistency of charter descriptions, terms of members and chairs, number of members, ex officio number and term, how long an ex officio could potentially serve, homeowner requirements to join, goals, and members approved by the board. That's kind of their starting point, and that's all the direction we have given them as a starting point in this task force. The members, next slide, Joey. I've been lucky. Lee Lexell has been willing, as chair of the golf committee, to take on the task of chairing this task force. So, Lee, I appreciate you and your willingness to do this. Essentially, this task force will be made up of chairs of committees, the people who are affected by this policy. So the expectation is that within another 3, 4, 5 months, the timelines are not hard, but they will come back to the board with a recommendation as to a policy, a committee policy that will guide us into the future on how committees basically function and the expectations we as a board have on how the committees work day to day. So anyway, that's the summation, if you will, of the task force and the expectation we have of that task force. So I'm going to make a motion to the board to approve the committee policy task force recommended targeting date by the end of Q1 2024. As I mentioned, that's not a hard date, but that is hopefully enough time for this group to work and give some feedback to the board. So, having said that, do I have a second to this motion?
I second.
All right, Matt Campick, second the motion. Is there any questions? You guys got any questions? Want to talk about anything?
Yeah, I think this is a really good idea, and I think it's really important to understand, and Dan mentioned it. You know, we are really a young organization. We're only 6 years old. And when we first took over from Robeson, the previous boards had an enormous amount of work to do to create, because quite frankly, we weren't given a whole heck of a lot of stuff from Robeson when we took over. So really, I've been on the board just a little less than 2 years, and there's been an enormous amount of work in going through and just looking at so many different things that just needed to be either tweaked or adjusted or created or changed. And this is just one of those many things. So it's really something that's important, I think, for us to get a handle on. It certainly hasn't been at the very top of our list of things to worry about. As you know, there's lots of big issues. But it's just one of the many things that we just have to work on and clean up along with a lot of other things. So anyway, I appreciate Dan coming up at least with the idea, and I think it's good that we get a task force to volunteer to be able to work on it. So,
Can I assume that's a yes from you? Okay, good. Any other questions? No other questions? Man, you guys are good. I wish I was selling something. Any questions from the audience relative to this committee policy task force? Wow, cool. Okay, having heard none, I'll put it to a vote. All in favor of commissioning this committee policy task force, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Good luck, Lee. Thank you. No, actually, thank you very much for doing this. It'll give us lots of good direction going forward, so thank you. Next on the agenda is Walter, employee use of the Desert View Fitness.
Thank you, Dan. I'd like to request something from the board here. This was mentioned last month, and the staff worked on it throughout the month to develop this. So next slide, please. So we would like the staff to be allowed to use the Desert View Fitness Center. So why would we request this? I think a typical search on the internet and, kind of typical knowledge is that if you work out 30 minutes a day, it increases your stress relief, your heart health, your productivity, and many other things you benefit from exercising 30 minutes a day. With the environment we're working in right now, we're trying to find different ways to entice staff to stay here, different benefits other than just raising pay. So this is an idea that a different benefit for staff that would entice them to enjoy working here at Saddlebrook just a little bit more. Now this request is no cost to the HOA. The HOA already runs the fitness centers. It would just be staff coming down to use the fitness centers. So next slide, please. All right, so throughout the month, we worked on this. We talked to Jeanette, we talked to HR, and what we did is we came up with a process that we would like to follow to make sure that staff doesn't run awry in the fitness center and that we follow rules. So first, we would have the staff fill out a waiver, such as the residents fill out waivers. So we would fill out a waiver, sign a gym etiquette agreement. So again, Jeanette provided that to us on how we should act in the gym. We ask employees to avoid prime time, and Jeanette again mentioned that from 8 in the morning to 10 o'clock in the morning is usually prime time, so definitely our staff would not be allowed to use the gym during those times. And any other times that Jeanette feels that we need to avoid, we would let our staff know that. And this is just a consideration for the Desert View Fitness Center, not the Preserve. So I ask the board, or we as a staff ask the board, we request your consideration and approval for the use of the Desert View Fitness Center by the staff according to the steps above, the 5 steps that I just mentioned. So Dan, that's what we're asking.
Yep, thank you, Walter. I will make that as a motion so we can have a conversation here. So I'll make the motion that we authorize employees of HOA 2 to use the Desert View Fitness Center upon their own capabilities with these restrictions as outlined in the presentation that Walter just made. So I make that motion. Do I have a second? Sean, second. Any questions? Any comments you want to ask Walter about?
Will this new procedure be reviewed in 30 or 60 days to make sure that the 8 to 10 is the right hours to for the employees not to be there?
Yes, and it'll be open.
I just heard that before 8, there's a lot of people there.
Yeah, it'll be open to, again, I'll fall back on Jeanette to give me the advice on hours to avoid so that we don't get in the way of the residents.
Yeah, and with regard to that, understand that almost all of our employers are working from 8 to about 4 o'clock. So unless somebody's planning on sneaking out and working out in the middle of their workday, there's very few people that are going to be able to participate during the prime time anyway, simply because they're working. I expect that most of the use of this is probably going to be either before 8 o'clock or probably after 4 o'clock. At least that would be my assumption, Walter.
Oh, that's a pretty good assumption. We do have some folks that come in early and get off work around 2, so there may be some folks that are looking around 2. But again, I don't see that this is going to be a lot of staff. There's certain staff that like to exercise, and then there's others that would just rather go home. So I don't see that this is going to be a whole lot of staff, but at least it'll be a benefit to those that are interested.
All right, good. Any other questions? So staff won't break anything, right? They won't like run on the treadmills or lift heavy weights or stuff?
That's part of the etiquette. No breaking, no no yelling when you're lifting heavy weights. So that's all part of the etiquette.
All good, all good. Okay, any other questions from the audience on this motion to allow employees to use the Desert View Fitness Center? If you have a question, I need to have you come down only because I need you to have your mic so we can record it. I'd love to have you yell it, but to get it recorded for people that watch us online, you need to be in front of a microphone. That's my only concern here. So thank you for doing that.
Claude Wise, 4859.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Claude Wise, 4859. How many employees are we talking about? What do we have? What's the staff number of employees that we have here in Saddlebrook?
So we have about 160 or so employees, but people that will take advantage of this is going to be very minimal. I'm thinking maybe up to 10 people at most would take advantage of this. A lot of it's going to be the administrative staff, a lot of the common area, and those folks, you know, they're pretty tired at the end of the day and they're just going to go home. So I'm expecting, you know, probably about 10 or so. That's about it.
Okay. You know, and I think it's a good idea, but when we do go to the clubs, we don't really see what's behind the door, but what I do see is I see all the 18 and 19-year-olds. And, you know, I guess if I have a concern, that's my concern.
Okay, and we'll watch that. Jeanette will report back to us if we do start having any problems with this.
Any other questions? Good comment. Thank you. I recognize this person.
Dick Schrader, Unit 49, Lot 9. First, a comment. I agree that this is a good benefit for employees. Is it a correct assumption that they will not be doing this while being paid?
That is my plan, is to have them log out when they use the gym, and then they can log back in if they're in the middle of their workday.
Secondly, I think although it might be a technicality to say there's no cost to the HOA, you're not considering, depending upon volume and use, that there could be wear and tear on the equipment, so there probably at some point is some incremental expense to the HOA. And pick up on Chuck's comment, do you have a plan to do a look back in a few months to determine the volume and be willing to make adjustments if there's more use than you anticipate?
Definitely. I don't have an actual plan, but I'm going to depend on Jeanette, who's sitting back there shaking her head yes, that she will give me feedback.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Dick. Any other questions?
I'm Don Sanders, Unit 48, Lot 33. I was wondering, given that all the other fitness centers in the community, I think they, like at the Preserve, I think they're open at 10 till 10 o'clock at night, and then somebody locks the door, correct? Or what time do they close?
That's correct. I believe that one is closed at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, and I think that's the way it is at HOA 1. And is there any reason to facilitate some of the people that you're talking about here that maybe get off late and want to exercise afterwards, or some of us that would like to exercise later? Is there some reason we can't leave Desert View open? And what happens at 6 o'clock that one closes, but the rest of them don't?
Well, there's two things. I mean, part of it's staff, but the other thing is just leaving a facility like that open with not monitoring it.
But you're doing the rest of them.
No, we shut down the Preserve at 10 o'clock. We opened it back up around 4:30 in the morning because there are certain individuals.
Right, I'm just saying,
to.
why not make that the same thing at Desert View? Why does somebody have to monitor Desert View from 6 to 10 and we're not doing it anyplace else?
I just think there's a whole lot more to get hurt and a lot more equipment here at Desert View that we don't want to open up to that.
So the employees that you're talking about, the ones that work late, they would not be able to use, to keep the employees because a lot of them work later. Isn't that the reason we're doing this?
It is, but most of them are going to be able to get off before 6 o'clock or so. I mean, so.
Would you be willing to at least look into why we can't leave Desert View open?
Yeah, I can look into that.
Okay.
So,
I mean, I'd just like to hear why we can't. I mean, I don't see any difference between it and the rest of them.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Don.
Walter, they'll get cards, all the employees who would want to use the facilities will get cards just like residents get?
They'll get a card, but it'll be a staff card. I have a card, but it's a staff card. And so when I enter the pool or enter the fitness center, it logs me in also, and it's identified as my card.
Will that card restrict them just to the Desert View Fitness Center?
Yeah, we can restrict and stuff on those cards.
So they will not be able to go into the Preserve at all with that card?
That's correct. We can exclude the Preserve entrance.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none. The motion is to allow employees to use Desert View Fitness Center using the suggested guidelines that Walter has in his presentation. I won't go through all of them, but all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Walter, thank you very much. We'll look forward to this. All right. Oh, we have been waiting on this for so long. Ray Adams is here to talk to us about a rules and regulation change that would include dogs walking on the golf course. So, Ray, come on up.
It's a real pleasure to be here. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about dogs on the golf course today. That's a subject you probably heard something about in the past. And I've gotten a number of questions about just exactly what you guys been doing, you know, for the last couple of months anyway, since we've been talking about this since June. Well, we've been doing a little review. We had over 140 comments with respect to the Bridge the Gap period. And it's important, I think, for folks to remember that this Bridge the Gap initiative was one that was created to try to make sure that the rules with respect to the ALC and the rules and regulations were in the right places. And there were 9 specific changes that needed to be made. One of those, in a subset, addressed dogs. So a number of people who responded to us really had no interest in that subject whatsoever. So given the overwhelming response that we got with respect to dogs, we thought it would be appropriate for us to make sure that we had covered this as a specific subject. In addition to the 140 comments during that Bridge the Gap period, we had over 60, I think we're about 65 now, messages to the committee, each of which has been answered. And we've talked to the interested stakeholders, the appropriate committees, ALC, Golf, and Finance. We spent some time talking to the staff, to the Troon representatives, Dog Park, HOA 1. None were negative in their responses. The staff was neither pro nor con, and will do whatever the pleasure of the community will be once we've concluded this thing. There were some themes that were identified, and in short, many people wanted some sort of trial so that we could evaluate and make sure that we were doing the right thing. We felt it was important to increase patrol scrutiny, at least during the initial period, so that there would be an observation by disinterested folks who patrol this area regularly and give us some good feedback. We decided that we needed to have some resident involvement. And we've asked that one of our key folks who are interested in making sure that this issue came to the forefront has volunteered to put together a group of folks whose role, if you will be to observe and report, give us some sort of status about what's going on, because the patrol can't be there all the time. And the last thing that seemed to be important to everyone is that we have a common rule with respect to HOA 1. Okay, so if we really want to do this, with respect to the trial, we're sure that we're going to get some issues in the first 90 days or so. It's not going to be as easy as we would like to believe it will be. But if it doesn't seem like it's manageable after that period, we'll make a change. We want to increase the patrol scrutiny, and we've asked Dale to ramp up his patrol. He's got 2 vehicles and currently does 40 hours a month, and we're going to ask him to increase that for the first 90 days. The residents I've spoken about, their role would be to observe and report on activity. And finally, the common rule with HOA 1. It's about the same. There's not much that's going to make a change, and we'll talk to the complete rule here in a minute. It's a comment that I received from a number of people was, you know, a lot of people put together kind of a campaign to talk about this subject, and we're advocates. We really haven't given folks who didn't feel that way a forum an opportunity to express themselves. We didn't make the last comment period a referendum on dogs. So let's get some informed input from the residents on this specific subject. And let's do it when everybody's home, when the snowbirds and the vacationers are back, and we have an opportunity to get input from the whole community. We'd like to see an up or down opinion. Do you want to do this or don't you want to do this? And we'd like to make sure that in front of them they have a proposed rule that gives them an opportunity to understand exactly what it is that we're suggesting. The rule, I'll bore you by reading this. It won't take very long. The rule itself is pretty much an exact copy from HOA 1. There's a couple of changes, but not many. So dogs securely on a leash and under the immediate control of the dog walker may be walked on the golf course during posted walking hours. Leashes not over 16 feet long and not allowed to be let go and let the dog roam freely. All traffic, walkers, carts, any other permitted traffic must stay on the cart path. Dogs can roam on either side of the path up to the length of the leash. Walkers will depart the golf path as necessary to collect waste. Dog waste must be collected immediately and carried off the course. It cannot be deposited in the trash baskets on the courses. Dogs are specifically not permitted on tees, bunkers, greens, or driving ranges. If you look at the HOA 1 rule, you'll see that driving ranges are not included. We decided they were important enough to put them in specifically. No toys commonly used for dogs, such as balls, ball throws, prisoners, etc., are allowed on the courses. And of course, the Director of Golf Operations will adjust walking hours as required to conform with the seasonal changes in daylight hours. That too is an add that you won't see in the HOA 1 rule. We've called out some specific fines for the violations. They're considerably less than we had been accused of enforcing in the past. Walking on the courses before or after the posted hours with or without a dog, we don't care, $50. Failure of the dog owner to carry the waste off the course, $50. Failure to stay in a designated golf carts except for departures to collect dog waste, $25. Fines doubles on successive occasions. Okay, so what is that we're interested in specifically? We need to know whether the folks approve or disapprove. We need to know if the person responding lives on a golf course. They have, in point of fact, a higher interest in this issue than do other residents because they are the closest to the issue and those most likely to be affected. And we need to know what the residents' concerns are. What is it that gives them some trouble about this thing? Is it the dog waste? Is it noise from the animals? Is it disruption of wildlife? Or is it rule breakers? So we're going to ask those questions. And we're going to do it on a schedule, which I hope we've got up here. There we go. I don't know if you can read that or not. But the board meeting today is one in which we are going to request the board to give us an opportunity to collect comments. And we have an abbreviated comment period. It's been noted that in the past it was always a 30-day comment period. That has been reduced by this board to a standard more or less of 21. We're only asking for 14 days here. And there's two reasons for that. The first is that this issue has been in front of people before. There's been a lot of community involvement. So we feel like folks have probably stabilized their position on this issue and be able to respond to it quickly. The second is that the board meeting to accommodate the holidays has been moved up. And if we want to try and get this thing done potentially by November the 15th, then we need to tuck the comment period into the available days on the calendar. Okay, so I have a request for a motion And I'm asking the board to approve a motion to submit the proposed rule for resident comment during the period October through November the 12th.
All right, thank you, Ray. I'll tell you what, Chuck, why don't you, as the liaison to Rules and Regs, make that motion to the board and we'll get a second from that. Does that sound okay?
Sure.
What Ray just said. Okay, request the board to approve a motion to submit the proposed rule for resident comment during the period October 30th through November 12th.
Do I have a second? Matt Campick, second. Okay, we have a motion on the table for this issue. Is there any questions from the board?
I don't have a question, Dan, but I have a comment. On the proposal, it says that Chuck just wrote, it says October 30th. But on the resident comments underneath the proposed schedule, it says October 26th.
October the 26th is correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so because that will give people 4 more days to make a comment. So I'd like you to amend your motion, please, Chuck.
Okay, we'll make it October 26th instead of 30th, right, Chuck? Good? Okay, no problem. Any other comments from the board?
Yeah, I think this is a good thing. I wanted to point out that I think it's important that we do get this survey. I know there's been a lot of discussion about this and a lot of emotion by certainly some people, but really, as Ray mentioned, the number of actual input that they've had from residents, which is only a couple hundred, is only 3% of the people that live here. So it's really important, I think, that we take the time to get input from hopefully enough people that we feel we have a justifiable amount of data to make an intelligent decision. So I think it's a good idea to do it this way.
So that's a yes? Cool. All right, any other questions from the board? For Ray, good job, Ray. Questions from the audience on this motion? Come on up. Name, unit, and lot number if you can.
John Baranowski, Unit 23, Lot 21. My question is that I live on the golf course. I'm opposed to the dog walking, but I'd like to know, should more of the people that live on the golf course be pulled versus the people that live in the maze of Saddlebrook? I mean, we're the ones that are affected by the noise. I think it should be to the people that live on the golf course. We've paid extra money to live there. Our taxes might be a little more. We like the peace and quiet. You know, I think we should be more involved than the people that live in the maze.
Well, we are asking folks to identify themselves if they are golf course lot owners, so that we can consider them as a separate special group. You know, if you look at the streets in the morning, you see that there's an awful lot of folks out walking dogs. Those people are looking for a place to do it, and are all contributors to what we fund for the golf courses. And they're looking for an opportunity to use them. Their needs need to be considered as well. It's not simply the golf lot owners, although I'll concede that they certainly have more at risk, if you will.
My next question is, you know, we do have a dog park, we do have a dog run, and we do have a pet-friendly HOA 1. I mean, how much more does a person need? That's my other statement. But if it does get approved, I'm just wondering if the board and the committees would also approve bicycle riding on the golf course past, because if you're going to allow dogs on there, and if us residents have to put up with noise from barking dogs, from animals out there, I mean, I'm so honored to have wildlife right in my yard. I'm just blessed. And it's so nice and peaceful, and if somebody's going to have their dog out there barking for the next 5 minutes, that's disruptive to the residents on the golf course. But anyway, so I just thought I'd bring up the bicycles too. If it gets approved, why not have bicycles out there also? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Walter, this is too high.
You want me to help you?
Pat Alcivar, Unit 48, 100 something. So, sir, you're asking the patrol to be walking around these people with their puppies because somebody's going to have to tell them to clean up their stuff. The patrol just told us he doesn't have enough people to do patrolling. But you're asking them to now, I get this gentleman more things to do because clearly he doesn't have enough work. You know, you guys are out of your mind.
Okay, well, let me respond to that briefly. Dale does have 2 vehicles and does now currently patrol both golf courses for 40 hours a month. That's not a terrible amount of time, but it does give him an opportunity to get a representative look of what's happening on the courses. We are, to try and augment what Dale's doing, as I mentioned before, we're trying to mobilize a group of volunteers to provide some information in terms of feedback about what's going on, and to help direct Dale's attention to areas where there might be issues. So I think that we're not trying to put a terrible burden on Dale. We are trying to use the resident population to augment what's going on. We need to take a look at it and see what happens.
All right, thank you. Dick.
Ray, I got off the Rules Committee just in time.
Yeah.
I compliment the Rules Committee for addressing this topic head-on, and I think you're approaching it in the right fashion. And the only challenge I have in my mind, and I don't have an answer for it, is, Campbell, how much money are we spending on the Mountain View Golf Course?
The renovation?
Yes.
Approximately, well, if you throw everything in, about $6 million.
And what is your projection on what it may cost to renovate the preserve golf course in the future?
I don't have that number in front of me, but off the top of my head, it's phased in. If you're looking at our reserve advisors, our consultants, they're saying something in the neighborhood of $8.5 million, but I think it's going to be higher than that.
So the head scratcher I have is, with that amount of money that we're going to spend to renovate our golf courses, we're going to let Fido do what he wants on the golf course? And then the other comment is for those residents who are dog owners that might take advantage of this opportunity, who are saying that they're paying for the upkeep on the golf course and they're being restricted from walking on the golf course. All they have to do is leave Fido at home and walk the golf course. Thank you.
Thanks, Dick. Any other questions? What?
John Baranowski again. I agree with him totally. We got 2 pristine golf courses. It's nice to see them that way. They're golf courses, not a dog course. We have places where dogs can be walked. I think that's more than adequate. It's
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, one thing I would say, and it could be for the people listening as well, you have a chance for a comment. We're asking for those comments, so we are looking for that input. But you also could take a walk on an HOA1 golf course. Take off, go in the morning, walk around, see what you think. Get some real live view of what their residents are doing on their golf course. And I'm not saying I'm in favor or against, I'm just saying if you want some data, then take a walk on their golf course and see what's going on, because I have not done that. But it would be a good idea if you are concerned in your mind about making a decision on our comment thing. So anyway, sorry. Yes, thank you for coming down.
Brad Nickham, 7428, or 2874. I'll take the counter view of what I just heard after walking in late. I apologize.
Speak into the mic, please.
Yes. I do live, you can't hear me?
No. Now we can.
Okay.
Close to the mic. Thank you.
I do live very close to the golf course. I back up to the golf course. I'm not concerned about noise from the dogs. It'll be immaterial compared to all the other activities that could go on the golf course early morning. The other point I would make is, yes, we are going to spend $6 million and $10 million plus or minus sometime in the next few or more years. And it's not just golfers like myself that are paying for that. We subsidize it, and it's one of the largest green space assets that the HOA has. And I've heard in the committee meetings this thought process, and I applaud it. The other point I would make is I'll just share, I don't have a dog. Okay, so I have no dog in this fight, but I live on Skyline, and in the mornings that I'm not playing golf or pickleball, I take a walk after a bike ride. And I see all the 80-year-old widows walking their dogs. They can't turn their necks, and they're concerned about traffic. And one of these ladies who I've seen come at the meeting several times, this is a big deal for her. It's her outlet twice a day, beginning of the day, end of the day, with her dog, her 87-year-old husband, and she turns 85 in a month. This is all they do. And they pay the dues. They've been paying it for 25 years. And I think these people deserve to be considered more than those of us that use the golf course exclusively. That's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for the comments. Any other comments or questions from the audience? Hearing none, I'll go back to the original motion that we kind of changed a little bit. Yeah, let me get it. So the original motion requests the board approve the proposed rules for resident comment during the period of October 26th through November 12th, 2023. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Ray, thank you very much. Lots and lots of work. Still more to do. I won't take you off the hook here, but thanks for getting us to this point. Thank you. All right, one more. And this is a Common Area Committee charter and motion by Board Member Matt Cambick. Matt, it's all up to you.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate the fact that you assigned me the task that has no emotion attached to it. Michael, we've been on quite a journey in this community.
But Matt, it did have a motion, I can assure you that.
What's that?
It did have a motion, I can assure you that.
It's being funny. I just want to welcome Michael. We're talking about your sandbox here, and I give you the benefit of the experience of a board member for 10 months. We started off on what I thought was a righteous journey, but everybody up on this table wasn't sitting here when the original Common Area Maintenance Task Force was established and empowered to put together the Common Area Maintenance Policy that you've inherited. So when we launched it, and we got a lot of pushback from many areas, we had to take a step back, and we had to bring those good people from 2019 back together to make us smart. Well, what that's obviously showed us, it's incredibly important to have continuity of effort when it comes to our Common Area Maintenance Program. And the best way to do that is to have a committee of residents who are devoted to creating a well-maintained desert landscape throughout our community. And so, having said that, can you go forward? I think we're off to a great start. I was out watching your crew working this morning behind the wall down there on Winding Trail Road, beating back the jungle. And it was ironic, one of the members of that task force that stood on this stage and ably presented was down there wringing her hands and very worried about things. And I assured her that you were going to cut down every tree you ever discovered and found and encountered, including hers. And then I calmed her down and let her know that wasn't true, but the jungle had to go. And so, having given you that profound foundation, Michael, what I'm interested in doing is offering a motion for our board's consideration to request the approval of two things. First, we want to form an advisory common area maintenance committee to serve as an advisor to this board and all future boards. And I have provided a charter for the board's consideration, and I'm asking for approval of the Common Area Maintenance Committee charter that I have previously submitted. That's it. That's my motion. Two pieces to it.
Good. Thank you. I was reading along with you there. So we have a motion for the board to consider formation of an advisory committee, common area maintenance committee, and the approval of a charter for that committee that has been submitted. It was online for everyone to view before the meeting, so you've had a chance, if you were interested, in reading what that charter was all about. So I have a motion from Matt Cambick. Do I have a second? Second. Mark has seconded your motion. So, board, do you have any questions for Matt about any of the things that he talked about? That'll be after this. That's after this. Nobody's got a question? Have you guys read the charter? Raise your hand if you read. No, I'm just kidding. You know, we all read the charter. Hopefully everybody here read the charter. It's actually quite well done, I thought. But no question for the board. Anyone from the audience have a question? This is a big deal. This is a big deal. Common area is a huge part of our landscape. We think we need lots of resident input directly to the board through a committee functioning as an advisory role to the board. So this is really a big deal for us long term in terms of how we manage this community. Okay, nobody's got a question, nobody's got a comment. Then we'll go to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Your motion carries. Matt, now tell me what's next, Matt.
Okay. Next slide, please. So we need a chairperson to chair that committee, so I am offering up this as they plan to get there. I would like to open a window tomorrow to Charlie's good efforts. Have it open for 2 weeks for any interested resident in the community who would be interested in being the chairman of our Common Area Maintenance Committee to submit their resume to Charlie. At the end of that 2-week period, we'll take those resumes, and Denise and I will be the initial liaisons to this committee as we stand it up. We'll interview the interested candidates, and then it's my intent to bring our recommendation back to the board for approval at the November board meeting.
All right. Makes sense. Anybody, board, any comments from the board on that? Denise, thank you for being a part of this process. And I'm hopeful that even if you don't want to be the chair and are interested in being a part of the committee, You will also fill out a volunteer form that you can get online and make that known, because that person, whoever that person will be looking for members. So interested members should please try to fill out a volunteer form and submit it for the Common Area Maintenance Committee if you are interested. All right, good job. It's 11:44. We're actually doing quite well here. I'll remind us once again before we adjourn that you need to come to this budget town hall. It's kind of the one big show we have to talk about money and what's going to happen and what the plans are for 2024. That is here, November. Is it here? Is it Desert View? Am I wrong? Yeah, Desert View, November 1 at 10 a.m. If we had a lot of money, we'd have coffee and cookies, but we don't have a lot of money, so you'll just have to come. We also have a board meeting on November 15th. That board meeting is intended for a variety of subjects. I think dogs will be one, potentially, but it will also allow the board to approve the budget for 2024. So the town hall on November 1 is important to get everything clear, lots of concerns, questions answered at that meeting, and then the final version will be presented at the November 15th board meeting. Any other comments from the board? No? All right, thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned, but we now open it up for comments from residents of HOA 2. So come on down. There's no topic off limits. If you have, please give us your name, lot number, and your unit number. And you got 2 minutes. I'm always reminded of that.
Chuck Kelsey, Unit 29, Lot
All right.
69.
Thanks, Chuck.
Questions for Campbell. You said we spent $4 million this year, roughly, replacement? In the replacement reserve? Roughly, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's what's budgeted, sure.
Understand.
Yeah.
It begins to appear from your presentation, 2 5-year plans, that $4 million a year is about what the cost of doing business is going to be. I personally think that that's reasonable cost for the asset base that we've got. If that's the cost of living here, that's the cost of living here. I think a lot of people are going to choke on the numbers, 20 million and 23 million. And I'd just like to ask if you could present it a little bit differently or some added information. I'd like to see over the period of 2018 to 2023, I'd like to see what the cost of golf was each year, what the subsidy for food was each year, food and beverage, what the subsidy for golf was each year. I mean, we can control the subsidies. We may not like what it takes to control them, but personally, I back the subsidies out of the rest of the cost when I look at what it costs me to live here. If I look at 43 million over 10 years, that's my numbers, that's $1,250 per home per year to maintain our asset base. And I think people need to think about that rather than $40 million. Just my personal opinion.
No, you're right.
Okay.
We're going to have more of that type of scaled down information per residence, kind of at the budget meeting on November 1st.
Okay, I got 20 seconds. Question on your golf figures. The change orders for the concrete path total 116,000. Is that included in the project cost of 197,000, or is that additive? The 116 shows up in change orders, and I don't remember hearing about that until this piece of paper came out.
Same briefing as last month, but the answer, I got the
Maybe I missed that.
So I think what you're talking about is we've got that one PowerPoint that had the list of all the expenses relative to the $5.6 million budget and
Yeah,
where we were.
the chart that Campbell presented
And then we
this
have
morning.
the separate box.
Yeah.
So the change orders are not included in that left-hand. The left-hand column is actually the original contract that was signed, okay, where we had a 5.671 million contract. The budget we created was $6 million, so we put in a safety amount of $267,000, okay, to account for possible expense increases, because at the time we voted on this, the inflation was going nuts. So we really didn't know what was going to go on with parts. As it turns out, the only thing that actually ended up having to cost us extra money over what we had planned on was the $42,000 for sand. That was the only actual escalation that we had to spend out of that $267,000. So we then looked at a couple other things that actually, quite frankly, hadn't been looked at like they should have been, and it was the concrete that was right by Mountain View. And so we took some of that extra money that we had set aside in the budget and used it to fix things that really had to get fixed during the construction instead of ripping it up later. So that's
it's a change order, but it's in there.
It's a change order, and it was part of that, using the $267,000 that we had in the budget, again, that had extra money in it over the contract amount, which was the $5.7 million.
But out of pocket, or total cost for CarPass is $316K.
So you're talking about the left hand?
I'm talking about additive, 197.3 and 116.2.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know that.
So part of that car path is
I could have
the car
made it
path
simple
from
for
9
you.
to 10.
Yeah.
Chuck, I could have made it simple. There was a lot of concrete work in the in the original contract. What we discovered after we got going, there was concrete work that needed to be done that wasn't in the contract. That's what the change
Yeah,
orders
I'm
are.
not debating it needed to be done. I'm just trying to understand the total ball of wax. And I know my time is up, but the irrigation cost of $235 in irrigation is also additive to what was in the original project numbers on the left. Okay. Matt says no. I'm fine with that.
Can we get back to you? Because
I'm just trying to understand
No, I
Cheney's
understand,
charts.
I understand. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Discussed on the first?
I'm done.
Not these construction
No,
costs, no.
good question, Chuck. Well, it doesn't sound like we can get the perfect answer on the irrigation. Okay, next question.
Claude Wise, 4859 again. Couple of comments, Dale, I wanted to ask, that was really interesting about the speeding and the non-speeding, and there was a lot of things that was there. The one thing that I missed is how many violations are you guys writing? And I'm not sure that I need your answer right now, but if you're going to brief us on these kind of things, I'd kind of like to, I know you got one guy, but I'd really like to know how many violations you guys are writing against that 3 to 6%.
It varies from year to year, and we have the ability to add a daytime kind of a crossover shift specifically to focus on traffic issues, which we have foregone for about the second half of this year due to staffing issues. So the first half of the year, we were about to set a record, actually, for the number of citations we wrote for traffic related issues. But it is skinnied down to, I believe, to date, about 150 citations. But that isn't necessarily all for traffic. That would include like RV violations, parking violations, things like that. So, you know, it's not our favorite thing to do. You know, we don't like to issue citations to people, just pull them over and ask them for their license and all that.
I look around, I'm sorry, for all this old people are speeding, it just blows my mind.
Well, I'll tell you that I did do a study that 80% of the traffic-related citations have been from HOA residents. People are quick to blame contractors and others, but that's really not true. It's an internal problem to our community.
I get it.
So, right.
I guess I really have a comment. I don't have a dog. I don't play golf. Golf course is not a park. And I kind of just want to leave it at that. I kind of saw tees, bunkers, greens. So I'm assuming the people that want to walk their dogs, and I get that. My parents, my aunts and uncles, my God, they wouldn't even travel because of their dogs. Okay? So I get how important they are to certain people. So I'm assuming that they can walk the fairways. And the hours, golfers really are kind of from 6 to 5. At least that's the hours that I see posted. So that really only kind of gives people after 5 o'clock to get on the fairways. Or if some people really get up that early, and I'm sure that there are. Okay, my point is I just don't think golf courses are parks. That's not what they're for. We pay a lot of money and I don't use them. But I'd like to go, and I heard something about bikes. Okay? I wouldn't mind riding my bike down the paths. Okay. But since I've lived here and I'm fairly new, everything's been under construction. So I just see my little signs that I drive by that I can't access the parks. And one other thing about golfers.
We're running.
Well, I got a lot of information from Dale. So,
Good.
okay?
I'm happy. I'm happy for you.
So I'm just going to throw this out, and maybe it'll be on the first. Golfers have to pay quite a bit of money to play golf. I didn't see any of that stuff. Where did those dollars show up on the budget side?
It shows up in the revenue item.
Yeah.
Okay, well, is that going to be things that'll be available we can talk about on the first? Okay.
All right, thank you. Again, next comment, please.
Greg Ballard, 3613. Mine is financial, my comment. There's a lot of attention paid to food and beverage in the analysis that you did. That is a look at what we're doing versus plan. If you look at what we're doing in real dollars, the huge deficit is in golf. Golf is currently, this year, almost twice what it is in food and beverage. And if you look at the plan is about 5 times greater. So I think in terms of what we do in planning, we need to think about that and what we do to offset some of that. And in your numbers going forward, does that include the renovation of the preserve?
The renovation of the preserve is kind of phased between 2026 and 2029.
So is that included in that $12 million?
Not the 12 million. That was we've already spent from 2018 to 2023. So part of that was the Mountain View renovation, but mostly just the.
I'm sorry, maybe I have the number incorrect. The large golf number in the fall.
Between the 12 million for the 10 years, you add the 8 and the 12 to make it 20. It's actually 20 million.
Okay, so we're talking about increasing the amount of money that goes into the reserve fund, and obviously we're talking about getting more money from the residents, and maybe we should look at whether or not we should do that renovation. That's what I think.
Thank you. Next comment.
Ann Grevel, Unit 42, Home 111. I want to thank the board and all the committee members for all that you do. Your work is very much appreciated. I don't play golf, so food and beverage is my thing. It has been presented additional investments in our replacement reserve fund is needed. And there is some talk about one-time assessments, maybe, to pay off Mountain View debt. If we look back to 2020 forward, including this year, HOA2 food and beverage units are projected to lose over $2 million, which equates about $645 per household. Since 2022, I've actively worked to address this deficit, including efforts such as crafting sample food and beverage support committee charter, completing an analysis, meeting with the leadership, and having provided a list of key performance indicators for the food and beverage dashboards. I haven't seen much work along these avenues and that have been implemented, and the numbers show a lack of accountability for meeting targets by the food and beverage team. In a August 1st meeting, it was conveyed that Troon would assist in obtaining a 10 to 15% price cut for our food purchases, but I'm only seeing about a 6% lift. Yet based on my accounting experience, inventory shrinkage, waste discounts, and return meals are also substantial factors in influencing the overall figures. But these factors have not yet been presented. While I appreciate the necessity for homeowners to contribute additional funds for homeowners due to fund expansion and debt relief, I'm all for that. I can't help but reflect on the potential outcomes if we had initiated measures in 2020 to strive for a $0 budget for food and beverage. This $2 million loss represents a missed opportunity, but it's not too late for the board to act now to stop this waste of much needed funding, and I thank you for this plea. Thank you.
What was your name?
Ann Greville.
Yes, I read you on whatever that thing my wife makes me read. So all this work you've done, where did it go?
I've sent it to Dan and Campbell and Chuck and Walter and Alan.
Would you share it with me?
I would be happy to.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you, Ann. Next up, Steve.
Steve Penner, Unit 14. I want to talk about the reserve, but first I just want to make a little history on what Dan's question. The reserve, it's only to replacement current assets. 4 boards ago said that until I took $2 million out of the reserve and called it a loan, which of course it wasn't a loan. They said the same thing, and I hope this board doesn't act like they did, because that's clearly wasn't a purpose of the reserve, was to buy the golf course. In many states, that would have been an illegal operation. But I want to talk about the current reserve. Campbell mentioned year-end reserve about $3.5 million. Well, if we look at the reserve study, they estimate the reserve at the end of 2023 at $1.7 million. So if we use that reserve, we've already doubled what they project in this is required in the study. So based on that reserve, it wouldn't appear that we have any extra. We have to fund it any additionally. However, if the reserve was took into account the actual amount spent on the golf course, the reserve would be close to zero. And then it would be obvious that we have to increase the dues to fund it. Now, I'm asking from your viewpoint, what is a reserve? Is it $3.5 million, or is it really nothing if we took into account the expenditures on golf, the amount we pay to the vendor, not the amount to repay the loan, which you're treating it as a lease. It's a loan, and it's not shown on the balance sheet as a loan, and you're spreading it out, those expenditures out over 5 years. We spent the money this year. It should be accounted for this year in the budget.
All right, thank you. I guess Campbell will.
Does anybody disagree that the amount we spent, the $5.5 million, shouldn't be considered an expense from the reserve? We paid it out.
Yeah, I'm not an accountant. I can't give you the finalities of that.
Well, first of all, if you look at the reserve budget, that full $5.7 million is in the reserve budget for this year as an expense, okay? And then we have the $6 million loan, which is entered as, I guess you'd call it income, if you want it to offset it. And then we have the $1.2 million per year that we have to pay off that loan as an expense in the next 5 years, every year in the budget. So it's all right in there in black and white. So I'm not sure I'm understanding your question.
It's there black and white. If you look at the budget, you showed I'll take the number of $6 million
Okay.
for golf,
Yeah.
right?
But, well, 5.7 million, 6 million is the budget.
5.7.
Yeah. Okay.
And what did you subtract? You subtracted the amount of the loan less the amount that you're going to repay this year for the actual
It's the way the math works. It's the way the math works.
So,
Yep.
so
Yep.
by that logic, if you increase the loan, you would have no capital expenditures.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well,
With reserve,
I-
you increase the loan, you increase the loan payment.
Huh?
You increase the loan, you increase the loan payment.
Obviously, you increase the loan, but
I mean,
how-
it's all a matter of the
but
same
the
pair of pants.
expenditures-
It's what pocket
I
you
mean-
want to put the money in, you know, so I
mean,
guess I'm not sure that, if you want to talk about this after the meeting,
I'd
I
be
guess we
glad-
could.
I'd be
Yeah.
glad to
I'm not,
talk to
because
you
I'm not
about it.
sure I'm
I mean,
understanding
we
exactly your
spent-
point, but
We
anyway.
paid that vendor $5.5
Anyway,
million.
thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Steve. Any other comments? All right, nobody? The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know